Hello, hi, and welcome to another episode of the Emma Gunn Show. And as it is the first full episode of 2025, which means that we are right in the thick of all the January excitement, I thought this episode could focus on something that I hope I can offer a helpful perspective on, and that is diet and exercise. Not weight loss, although there's so much weight loss noise around at the moment, but more just how to rally yourself to be able to focus on your health and fitness goals as the year goes on. I think it's wonderful after a period of excess that we have in December, where usually we are drinking and eating way more than usual, to think about how we would like to be eating and fueling ourselves and what tastes and flavors and all that sort of kind of thing. I think it's good to take a little moment to consider all of those things after a period where it's kind of like, anything goes. So that's what I want to talk about. It is not hopefully going to be triggering. Obviously, I have talked about weight loss at length. I think we have done that I'm sure I'll find a way to bring it back into the conversation at some point. But I wanted to talk about it because quite a few people have been messaging me about it recently. And in particular, in December, I said on my Instagram, and I also wrote on my Substack, that I would be exercising every day in December. And the reason I choose to do that is because in December, everything goes out of the window. There's a very jelly-like structure to the month, in that in the first 2 weeks, everything is working towards the second two weeks, and it's all a little bit loose and everyone's a bit stretched and pulled and what have you. And so essentially, while there is a lack of structure in life generally, I think, as somebody who is freelance and so doesn't have a huge amount of structure in their life anyway, I think that it's actually, for me, really important to put quite a strict structure in place, which for me was getting up at the same time every single day, which I wasn't amazing at, but I tried. But it was the working out every single day. And the other reason, the sort of secondary reason, if you like, is because of all that loss of structure. And I think I definitely felt that towards the latter half of the month. I was staying in different places, I was visiting different people, so I was living out of bags. I was not around my own things quite a bit. Being able to exercise was just something that I could kind of tether myself to. It was like, well, this is my structure. And in January, I can actually loosen my grip on that a little bit because I've been so diligent about making sure that I do it every single day. So it's actually more of a psychological thing than a fitness thing or a health thing in December. It's about when everything else is becoming loose and unstructured and wobbly, is the best word I can think of. How can I have something solid that's running through all of those things when timings are off, places are off, all of those things? And so that's why I exercise every single day. But I had a lot of messages saying, why are you exercising? Is it because you want to work off Christmas success? It had nothing to do with any of that. It simply had to do with the fact that I felt like I needed to not let go of one thing. And because exercise is a really important part of my life anyway, I thought I'm just going to tighten my grip on that a little bit whilst I let go of everything else, like working hours, being in my own home. I can't even think like lunches and events that completely threw out the schedule. That sounds really glamorous. It's not at all, but you get what I mean. And so that's why. And actually, as I come to you now on the 6th of January, I am really glad that I did that, because that doesn't feel like a pressure that I've had to deal with, this kind of, oh, I better get back to exercising, better get up early to exercise, because that has not only been consistent, but it has been kind of my only consistent that I've been able to tether myself to throughout the whole of December. So that's just me kind of saying that's why I was doing it, if anyone was curious. Plus, I used it as a way of experimenting, because normally I aim for 3 to 5 workouts a week, and it doesn't always work out that way. For example, it's 3 o'clock now, I'm working from home. I would really love to go for a walk today, but I have been non-stop all day, and I'm not going to get out for a walk before it gets dark, and that's really frustrating because it's actually, we've got weather warnings coming out of our hoo-has at the moment in the UK, and yet it is a beautiful, crisp, and at the moment dry. I'm gesturing. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm gesturing over there. It is cold, hence why I'm double layered. But it is a beautiful day outside and I'm just going to miss an opportunity to go for a walk in it, which is really upsetting because it would be so nice to get some fresh air in the old lungs. But there we go. But it, why was I talking about walking? I've completely lost why was I doing that? Coming back to all of those sorts of things, coming back in January. Oh, the one thing I was going to say is, I was experimenting with new exercises. That's it. The one thing I was going to say as well is, if you have never tried that, of kind of holding on to something that is a habit or a regular thing that you do, like for me with exercise, if you haven't held on a little bit tighter to it for a period of uncertainty, give it a go next time, because trust me, it's felt really good to feel like I haven't let my entire life kind of collapse into a puddle that I have to sort of then collect up and make whole again in January. Anyway, I also use December as a period of experimentation, because normally I work out 3 to 5 times a week. I try to walk at least 10,000 steps a day. How many have I done so far today? I did do a workout. I've only done 4,000. So actually, after this, I will probably, or later on today, I will do some Get Fit with Rick walking workouts on YouTube, because that will get me up to the 10,000. It won't be the same as going out for a walk, but there we go. But I mentioned on Instagram, and I think I might have told you on here, that I have been experimenting with Pilates and strength. So for, I would say, the last 3 years, even sort of closer to 5, but I think the last 3 years with sort of some sort of progression and certainty, I have been lifting weights, so strength training. So all of my workouts have been around training particular parts of the body with weights that I'm trying to get progressively heavier. So I started out with 3 kilogram weights, then I graduated to 5 kilogram weights. I then bought a set of 10 kilogram weights. And the 10 kilogram weights are still a bit of a challenge, but they are far less of a challenge than they used to be. There are some exercises I won't even touch. Overhead presses, for example, still not 100%, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Chest press, easy as anything now. Lunges, love them. But some of the other exercises still quite a challenge, but that's great. But I love doing those exercises, but I think, as I told you before Christmas, I realised I was missing out on the cardio element. And by missing out, I mean what it does for my emotional and mental health more than anything, because I really like that feeling of getting to the end of a workout and feeling puffed out and feeling slightly out of breath, and also feeling sweat on my skin. I really, really enjoy that. And I know that might sound quite weird, but when it comes to a lot of the strength training that I was doing, because I was lifting quite heavy, the movements were heavy for me. The movements were slower, and therefore my heart rate was never really getting that high. It was probably staying sub 120, even though I would get that lovely pump on the muscles that I trained, and I would definitely feel that I had worked. I was missing that sort of out of breathedness that I really appreciated. So towards the end of last year, I started to incorporate cardio. And by cardio, I don't mean running. I mean cardio, still following YouTube videos, but sort of things that might involve some jumping or sort of hopping or low impact cardio, but also a lot of body weight. So lunges, but without the weights, for example. So you're still training, but you're training in a more aerobic capacity as opposed to anaerobic. And suddenly that was like a torch paper. I was just like, oh, I really, really like this. And so I thought, oh, well, I'm going to explore some other options. And we'll come on to that, how I think this can be relevant for you guys in a minute. But I decided to investigate Pilates. Online, it's like Pilates X strength, like Pilates times strength, but it's just Pilates in strength. And by that, it is more combination moves with lighter weights. So, for example, whereas I might do lunges with my 10 kilograms, with a Pilates strength training YouTube tutorial, you might do lunges with a much lighter weight, but then when you're in the lunge, you might do a dumbbell, a bicep curl, or you might do an overhead press, something like that. So there are a few elements. It's combination moves, and because it's combination, and because you're doing more than one exercise at once, you do tend to take the weight down because of form. I simply couldn't do a lot of those things with the weights that I use for my more compound movements, because I'm concentrating a lot and I'm grounding myself, and when there's anything dynamic involved, definitely take the weights down a little bit. But that's something that I would recommend to anybody. And again, in addition to why are you exercising every day? Is everything all right? Like, yeah, everything's fine. But I have had a lot of messages from people saying, I really need to get my head together in 2025 about my diet and my exercise. And look, I've only got my head around this in the last 5 years, so I've got plenty of data from exactly what it was like when I would be in that position post Christmas, where I would get on the scales and go, oh my gosh, I have got a mountain to climb. And I would go to the gym, I'd try to eat well, but I'd never do it properly. Even though it looked like I'd never really got my head around it. So I wanted to sort of talk about that, and sort of we'll come into that. But the first thing is, if you might have already done it, but if you are on, or you're in that place that I recognise from so many of my years, where you've come out of Christmas and you now feel like, oh God, we've gone from eat an entire Yule log and here, have another chocolate, and what's wrong with 3 breakfasts in one day, to all of the weight loss messaging and all of the exercise messaging. I was watching TV the other morning and all of the adverts in the morning news were about diet plans, and I just thought, it's too much of a shift from one type of sort of sales pitch to more, eat, to let's now burn all of that off. So it's all very confusing. So if you haven't already, don't weigh yourself. This is something that I have decided not to do. I have decided that rather than weigh myself and go, oh, look at the damage I've done, because inevitably my weight will have changed over Christmas, I will get back to eating how I was before Christmas for a couple of weeks. And then if I think it's appropriate, if I think that there is work that I want to do and needs to be done, I will get on the scales and then we can go from there. But I think it's terrible. It's like Emma Story-Gordon, brilliant coach and from the EC method, who I've worked with, she always says, don't come back after holiday and on the first morning after that holiday get on the scales, because you'll see the worst of it. You'll see the food volume that's still in your body. You'll see the sort of the water weight from traveling. Like, it's just the worst time to do it. So if you want to weigh yourself but you think that you're not going to like what's on the scale, just kind of live as well as you can, make changes, try and get back to what it was before Christmas, and then if you think it's appropriate, then get on the scales and then kind of work from there. But give yourself a kind of fighting chance, as it were. That's one thing that I would say. The other thing that I would say, which is something that I used to do all the time, and I actually, yeah, I'm going to say it, I actually fell into this trap again this year, but very, very briefly. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to, by the way, just to caveat this, I don't feel bad after Christmas. I was working out all the time. Even though I ate far richer food than normal, I didn't feel like I overdid it in any capacity. But I thought, oh, maybe I want to do an 8-week challenge. Maybe I want to like chart this challenge. And then at the end of February, I'll be like, look what I did, guys. And then I thought, oh, there's a part of me that does really want to do that, because when I'm doing my Instagrams in the morning, I'm like, hey, this is the workout I've just done. I can see that as much as I do have definition in my body, I also do have quite a sort of, it's not puffy, it's spongy, it's kind of like, it's not a lean body. And there are times when I think maybe I want to get really lean. And then I think, but I really, if I really wanted it, I'd think about it more, and I don't. I'm sort of all right with it. But I fell into the trap for about 24 hours of thinking, I'll drop my calories really low for a couple of weeks and then I'll get on the scales and everything. And what I realised was something then so that would have been what I'd always done. And again, Emma Story-Gordon always says, dropping your calories is why diets fail, because essentially it's not that the diet isn't working, it's that it's so hard to adhere to. And she's so right, because I dropped my calories by 200. Again, I eyeball it at the moment, but I was like, right, I'm going to try and stay 200 to 300 below what I believe is my maintenance. And I lasted a day, and I got to lunchtime and I thought, oh my gosh, I am ravenous. I don't have enough for the kind of meal. I don't have enough calories left for the kind of meal that I would like to eat. Therefore, I'm already feeling hard done by, and it's not even 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's why I could never stick to those low calorie diets, because it was never enough. The Greatest Showman, it was just never enough. It was never enough for me to be able to maintain myself. And what would happen is I would get to a certain point in the day, and I hadn't kind of joined those dots. I would get to a certain point in the day and think, I haven't got enough calories left. Oh, no, that means I'm going to go over. That means it's going to be terrible. And I would get myself into this mental turmoil, and it was nonsense. So I just thought, okay, slow and steady. Why don't we just sit at maintenance for a bit? Because you haven't been at maintenance for however many weeks since just before Christmas. So just like settle at maintenance and then see how you feel. But any kind of big changes in calories or what you're eating, anything that might look restrictive, that would mean that you would feel hard done by and then you would suddenly feel hungry, then it's actually real. Just put them to one side. Don't worry about that just yet. Just think about making good choices. And I know that sounds so vague and like, what's a good choice? But everybody knows. I remember speaking to the personal trainer, Dalton Wong. He had a brilliant book out. I remember working with him back in the day. He used to train Jennifer Lawrence for the Hunger Games. And I remember him saying, you know before you're putting something in your mouth whether it's a good decision or not. Like you really do. You know. So I kind of always come back to that when I'm sort of hovering around the fridge, opening the door, looking inside. I'm like, I hear Dalton's words and I think, oh gosh, you know what you're doing here. And that if you make that decision and you get that halloumi out and you grill that halloumi, which is what I wanted to do last night because I was in a foul mood and I thought I need something. But I also looked at the halloumi and thought that's going to get me, that's a step away from where I want to be and I want to step towards it. So actually the step towards where I want to be is to put the halloumi back in the fridge, the sell-by dates not for another few weeks, and take a step out of the kitchen. And that was the right thing because I'd eaten really well. It was not it was not an urge to eat from hunger. It was an urge to eat from sort of being in a bit of a mood and being a bit tired and being a bit dehydrated. Must drink more water. We'll come on to that in a minute. But if you are at the beginning of the year and you are thinking that you want to make any kind of change, start small. And that's because it's almost as though, and I've been here again, so I can relate to all of this, you start too big. You think, right, I'm going to get up every day at 6 o'clock and I'm going to work out by 7. It's not realistic. It's just not realistic. You can probably make that happen for a little while, but something is going to get in the way at some point. And I think even last month, even though I committed to working out every day, I'm normally a morning exerciser, but there were days when it just wasn't feasible, and so I worked out in the evening. And it was quite good to be able to realise that there's flexibility within that structure. So just think about a habit that you would like to incorporate. And if now you are sitting here listening to this or you're watching this and you're not exercising and you think, well, I want to start somewhere. I mentioned Get Fit with Rick. There are walking workouts that take 12 minutes. Just pop one of those on. They are so easy to follow. There's good music. And you'll get to the end and you most likely will want to do another one, but you'll also begin to build up that feeling, that endorphin rush of, oh, I just did that. I didn't have to. No one made me. But I just did that and I quite enjoyed it. I'll do a longer one next time, or maybe I'll do 3 of those this week and 3 of those next week. And if they begin to feel really easy, then I'll do a longer one. But this idea that you have to suddenly start from the highest, like Olympic value and then maintain that it just doesn't make any sense at all. Realistically, when I was talking about how I wanted to do a 2-month challenge the other day, I was thinking about it. It was nonsense really when you think about it, because I would have to have started like hard in the beginning of January to see any kind of result in 8 weeks that I could then document and show anybody. The real thing for me is, okay, say I do want to lean down a little bit. How's that going to look over the next 6 months? Because by the time I hit 6 months, by the time we hit the summer, whatever it is that I want to get to, there should be changes that I could be making. I need to work up to that particular thing. Otherwise, I've done it many, many times before. You make a change too quickly, it lasts for a very short period of time, and then you end up back at the beginning, which is very, very frustrating. So create a habit, even if it's the tiniest little thing, even if it's just for the whole of January, you get up one day at a different time, or you do something different, just small, steady, slow, because think about 2025. It's not about starting 2025 off as the best version of yourself. It's about making the changes at the beginning of this year so that at the end you can check in and go, actually, I made a ton of progress. That's really cool. So that would be what I would say about setting habits. It doesn't have to be a big change. It just has to be small, incremental changes towards where you want to be. Don't start with the end point at the beginning. Figure out what that is and then make tiny little adjustments along the way. And it will be a far more empowering journey if you do that as well, trust me. The other thing is to think about how you feel. This is something that I never used to do, and it's taken me a long time, and I'm still not very good at it. I was even chatting to my brother the other day for Christmas. I was like, I feel like this, but I should be doing that. and I was just kind of I was at loggerheads with myself because I needed a rest over some things, and I wasn't allowing myself the rest, but it was just very, very obvious that I needed a rest. And the same can be true with diet and exercise or any kind of health pursuit. I was exercising all the way through December, and by that exercising, I was trying to follow at least 30 minutes of a workout that would get my heart rate up for a 30-minute period. I like to get my heart rate up over 125 beats on average for that whole 30 minutes. But when you're doing weight training, even if you're doing cardio with body weight, your body is at some point going to need a rest. And those are the days when you just go, okay, I will go for that long walk today. That can still constitute, you can still get your heart rate up and you can do it for a slightly longer period. But it was about knowing when to take rest. And the same is true with food. I never used to think about how food made me feel. I would just eat. And the only thing that I would tune into was how it made me feel. I mean, it sounds gross, but how it made me feel when it was in my mouth. So, and then I wouldn't think about it. And because all I focused on was the taste and like, well, they call it mouthfeel, don't they? It meant that it was almost as though my computer's decided to go off. Let's put it back on again. It was almost as if my my relationship with the eating experience was just about the chewing. And I never did what became so important, which was to sort of half an hour after I ate, think, how do I feel now? How do I actually feel? Like, do I feel full? Do I feel bloated? Do I feel like I could eat like an entire sandwich now? Like, how does this kind of food make me feel? And as soon as you begin to tune into things like that, so for example, this morning, I decided to make this dish called Turkish eggs. Now I'm reading Jay Rayner's cookbook. It's not a cookbook, it's a really brilliant book actually. But I'm reading Jay Rayner's book at the moment, and there was a recipe in there or something similar to that. And so then I started looking on social media, and I'd already saved some recipes of these Turkish eggs. So I thought, oh, I'll make those today. And I thought, and actually that's brilliant because I know I'm doing quite a big workout, full body workout with dumbbells. So if I make that with 0% Greek yogurt, I'm going to have 20 grams of protein. I'm going to make it with 2 big Burford brown eggs. So that's going to be about 14 grams of protein. So I'm going to be like proteined up by the time I finish that. But also, it's not bloating. It's filling, but it's not going to make me feel uncomfortable. It's the kind of fuel that you can eat a decent amount of it and it doesn't weigh you down. And I never used to think about that in times gone by. I would probably, in times gone by, have eaten something like those Turkish eggs and wanted loads of buttery bread with it to sort of, I don't know, make the taste sensation part of it much more exciting, because let's face it, butter and bread can make things more exciting. But in my case, definitely eating bread makes me eat more. Eating complex carbs, I'm like, give me more, give me more, give me more. So I'm better if I kind of ease off them in the first half of the day and have them later on, because you tend not to, but I don't, tend not to think at 10 o'clock at night, I don't know, I'll have 2 slices of buttery toast, because you know that you're about to go to bed. So I really paid attention to how food makes me feel and how exercise makes me feel. So tomorrow, for example, I will definitely do a much lighter cardio session. I will also be really diligent about going out for a walk, because my lower body has been worked a lot over the last couple of weeks and it hurts to sit down. Like, I can definitely feel that there are sorenesses in my glutes and in my quads. And as much as I enjoy that, and it lets me know that I've been doing the right kind of work and that I've been working my muscles and engaging them, I also know that they need a bit of a break. I also know that that's when taking something like magnesium, a great supplement that's really good for, as soon as I started taking magnesium, actually I stopped getting bad DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. So taking magnesium is absolutely brilliant and really helps me with that. So think about how all of these things make you feel. Don't think about starting January as like, right, I'm going to be my best self now. Make changes, and along the way think, does this make me feel good? Does this make me feel like, does this feel like it's pushing me in the right direction? Does this make me feel bad because I won't do that again if it does? Think about all of those things. Like, this is an opportunity to make changes and log a load of data, not make changes and try and stick to an unrealistic habit change that is so far removed from what yesterday looked like that it just won't be able to be maintained. And again, I've already sort of implied this, but focus on fueling yourself. So if you are deciding that you want to get on some kind of fitness regime, or you were going to the gym moderately last year and now you're really pushing it, make sure you're fueling yourself, make sure you are packing in the protein, make sure that you are hydrated. Look, I'm not Tom Brady, but I remember reading an interview with Tom Brady where he talked about how much water he drank, and it was a crazy amount of water. And he said, yeah, but I use my muscles a lot and they need hydrating. Like for a muscle to work, for a muscle not to get damaged, for a muscle to work efficiently, it has to be hydrated. So I drink loads of water. And every time I get to this kind of time in the afternoon, I think, how much have I had? And I think, none. I think, right, what would Tom Brady do? And Tom Brady would drink a litre of water, a gallon of water, who knows? But one thing, and I know I've talked about this before, but I have started taking electrolytes in the morning. And electrolytes, I think there's arguments for and against, especially if you've got a lot of salt in your diet. It might not be the best move, but I salt my food very occasionally. I rarely add salt to my food, actually. So for me, I don't think it's that much of a problem, but I have noticed that I have far less issues with my fatigue in the afternoon since I've started taking electrolytes. I was using Ancient and Brave, which is lovely, but I wanted to try a few other brands, and at the moment I'm actually using Wool Powders, the cherry electrolytes, and they are fantastic. Really great way to start the morning as well. I actually get a pint glass and I put a teaspoon of chia seeds in before I go to bed, top it up with water, so there's a pint of water. In the morning, the chia seeds have all gone slightly gelatinous. I mix those up and I neck that while I'm brewing my coffee. Then I pour another pint of water with the cherry electrolytes and I drink that. And then I have my coffee. And that's a huge amount of water compared to what I was drinking 2 months ago. And yet it doesn't feel like too much at all. It feels like I was obviously underwatering myself before. So again, paying attention, how did that make me feel? It was very obvious that a shift in how much water I consume, particularly in the morning, made me feel better throughout the day. So why would I not keep doing it? And I know what else is going to make me feel better. The sun. If you're watching on YouTube, like the afternoon sun has just sort of hit the window. The sky looks so beautiful. Right. Before we move on to the sort of final phases of this, I wanted to take a minute to talk about something that I talked about on my Substack, actually. So, and I'm sort of putting it in the middle so that it doesn't get missed, even though it's a little bit of a breakneck turn. But it's the Ectoin. No, it's not Ectoin. I always say that wrong. It's the Ectoin Hydro Barrier Serum from the Inky list. But in my head, when I write it, I call it Ectoin because that's how it looks like it should be spelled if you're watching on YouTube. Anyway, I wrote about this on my Substack at the weekend. So every Saturday, there will be a column. Now, it won't always be dedicated to a single product, but in this particular episode or in that particular feature, it just felt like this was worth highlighting on its own. But perhaps one of the things that I didn't say about the Ectoin Hydro Barrier Serum is that Ectoin is not a new ingredient. And actually one of the products that it's in that is kind of beloved is the Dr. Jart ceramidin, which is a lot more expensive. This is £15 for, what's the mil on this? I always forget these things. I always think they're small. I think this is 100 mil. Anyway, no, it's not. See, I don't know anything. It's 30 mil. I don't know what was 100 mil, but for £15, and then Dr. Jart is, I think, in the 50s, 50 something pounds. Look, different brands, different products entirely, but the same active ingredient. And the reason why Ectoin is really special, and the reason why I was so taken with it, is because I think we can all relate to that feeling of our skin being sensitized by either the skincare that we use or by the environment that we are in. So, for example, I use tretinoin. And I've said many times, whether it's on my Instagram or whether it's on here, that when I use an active ingredient like tretinoin, which is a powerful, hard-hitting, clinically proven active ingredient, I see the benefits of using that skincare. I see the benefits of using Tret. But at times, my skin will just need me to back off, and it will tell me that it needs me to back off because it will sting when I apply other skincare. Quite interestingly, I was at a family barbecue a couple of years ago, and one of the women there said, I've just had to, we were talking skincare, and I've just had to throw away my CeraVe gel hydrating cleanser because I'm allergic to it. And I said, excuse me, I don't think so. What? Because the CeraVe gel hydrating cleanser is a really nice, well-tolerated, gentle cleanser. So it seemed really odd to me that because she had been using it for a really long time, that she would suddenly have developed an allergy to it. So we had a little bit of a chat, and I said, well, what else are you using? And she had just started using quite a powerful, I think it might have been a retinoid. She'd started using quite a powerful retinoid in the evening. So the stinging that she was getting when she was applying her gel cleanser wasn't because of something that was wrong with the gel cleanser. It was that she had just perhaps pushed it a little bit too far with the retinoid, and her skin, which was now much younger skin cells, were a little bit vulnerable and just needed a little something slightly softer. She needed a night off from her retinoid, and so I told her to get the hydrating cleanser out of the bin. Anyway, it can happen also. It's not just active ingredients. I can relate to that because I have that quite regularly because of using strong skincare. But it can also happen in this kind of weather that we're having. So despite the winter sun that you are seeing if you're watching me on YouTube, we are in a weather warning for snow and rain and goodness knows what else, and freezing temperatures. And that outside coming inside to central heating can absolutely just mess the skin barrier up. And the point is that a serum like ectoin actually, so ectoin, the ingredient, is one of these ingredients that thrives in very high and low temperatures, in the kind of environments on the planet that you just would think nothing would be able to sustain life. It's a very, very clever ingredient. So in skincare, it does exactly what it does in nature, in that it protects and it shields, and it means that our skin is far better enabled and capable of protecting itself. It strengthens the skin barrier, and in combination with a multi-molecular weight hyaluronic acid, it really penetrates to hydrate skin at quite a deep level. I think, let me just double check because I put the stuff in front of me. It is clinically proven to deeply hydrate and strengthen the barrier in just 15 minutes, leaving skin bouncier and smoother in just 7 days. And there is something about 10 surface layers deep, whilst it instantly boosts hydration up to 10 surface layers deep. So that's all really impressive. Anyway, the reason why I dedicated a column to this is because it is well tolerated, suits all. You don't have to have a particular skin type. It suits all skin types. And if you are somebody who sometimes feel like your skin gets a bit dry, you don't have to have the stinging, you don't have to have the reaction. But if you just can feel that your skin sort of leaks moisture, if you get that transdermal water loss, this is the kind of thing that you add into your routine, and it adds in very, very nicely. You can use it as your first serum. I use it after my vitamin C. I then seal it in with a hyaluronic. I then seal all of that in with a moisturizer, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But if you are somebody who can feel that your skin gets noticeably drier, and there's often that urge to to use much thicker, more occlusive creams when that happens, but sometimes that's not the way. Sometimes you need another layer of that hydration that really gets in and kind of locks the moisture in, but also in conjunction with the ectoin will also protect your skin and prevent that water loss. So that's why I dedicated the column to it, because I just think it's a really special serum, and also because it's £15. And I talk about a lot of products, and I'm aware that many of them are really quite expensive. Well, not even expensive, because I think a lot of these things are value for money. I think you do get what you pay for in certain aspects. But I also really love it when something is just accessible. And the technology that is in this, and the benefits that you get from it, and the effect of it, the efficiency, all of that kind of thing, I think makes it a really special serum. So that's why I wanted to mention it in this episode. And also hopefully that will drive you to go over to Substack and subscribe to my column. You get a weekly beauty column on a Saturday. You get my Girl About Town. I wish I could call it something else. It's just my, what I've been up to that week column. I'm sorry that there is a child screaming outside, but we'll let them live. And then my sort of Girl About Town column is on Sunday. And then in the week, I might surprise you in your inbox. But basically, if you go to my Substack, the link will be in the show notes or below this video. Or obviously you can find it via my link in bio if you go over and follow me on Instagram. If you go there, you can put your email address in. You can pay to subscribe, and there are articles that do sit behind a paywall. But equally, there's lots of free content. If you go on there now, there's lots of things that you can read. And the more of you that go over there, the more I will keep writing and keep providing and make sure that you're up to date with all sorts of things. But for right now, those 2 weekly columns will be appearing in your inbox. And I hope that you really enjoy them. And if you have any feedback, I would love to hear them. office@emmaguns.com. Comment on the Substack article. In fact, any kind of engagement is kind of the golden nugget now for any creator. It's comments, it's likes, it's shares, it's all that kind of stuff. So anything that you can do on that capacity, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's with the podcast, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Substack, all of that's really invaluable. So please, I would appreciate your support. But I will be not just dedicating columns to single products, that's quite rare, but again, I think this is a really special serum, and I'm already hearing from people who bought it over the weekend who are saying, yeah, I get it, I understand why you're so impressed by it. So there we go. But shall we bring this plane into land and talk about a few more things just to do with health and fitness goals? And I'm very keen to hear any questions that you have. I've kind of talked about my experience in a relatively loose way. I'm not prescriptive. If you've been here for a while, you'll know that I'm not somebody who's going to tell you how to live your life, but I will offer you pointers that have worked for me, knowing full well that they might not be relevant for you, but they could be. But and again, use all the contact information that I've already shared to get in touch with me and ask me questions or comment below this video, etc. You know the drill. But taking time to explore, I alluded to this earlier, but when I was looking for the strength in Pilates, it was actually my social media algorithm that was showing me loads of short clips of impossibly lean, impossibly toned young women in the most gorgeous active wear cohorts doing exercises looking sort of ripped and really, really lean. There is something about the Pilates aesthetic that makes it very alluring, because I've not seen anybody online who is any way Pilates adjacent who does not look absolutely incredible, like toned, lifted, taut, lean, ripped, all of those things, and sort of impossibly glorious hair and impossibly coordinated leisure wear. Maybe it's a facade, I don't know, but I was I was beguiled and I wanted in. Now I've done a lot of searching, I've done a lot of I spent a lot of time over the holidays looking at accounts, and I have to say, much harder to find on YouTube than someone like Caroline Gervan, who I've been following for a while, who's got tons and tons and tons and tons of programs on her YouTube. I'm a premium YouTube subscriber, so that's how creators benefit from my engaging with them. I pay for the subscription, but it means that my workouts are never interrupted by an ad, which would be really jarring. But it's been far more difficult to find Pilates at strength. They all do seem to be behind a paywall. Or the other thing is I keep getting, I think, well, that one looks interesting, and it's another ad for the ladder. It's another creator who's on the ladder. And simply because I have felt like I've done so well with Caroline on YouTube, I don't really, at this point in time, feel like using or paying for an app that I can't stream as easily, because YouTube is so easy for me to stream through my TV because it's a digital TV. So I'm kind of reluctant to do that. But a few people on Instagram have suggested good accounts, so I'm going to share those with you. But what I wanted to say is quite important. Wherever you are, if you're beginning, whether it's strength training, whether it's Pilates, whether it's walking, whether it's jogging, whether it's anything, take some time. And by time, I mean like take a morning out of your schedule, or take an afternoon, or take an evening, and just browse, just search YouTube and browse fitness trainers, PTs, Pilates and strength. You're going to get so many results, but after a while the same videos will start coming up. And then I really encourage you to watch one, if not all the way through, then at least part of the way through, so you get a gist of what that trainer's like. So for example, one of the reasons why I really like Caroline Gervan's training is because she has a chat with you at the beginning. There's a timer on the screen at all times. You know exactly what's coming next because it's cued, and there's a thing along the bottom that tells you how many percentage or what percent of the workout you're through. So you always know where you are. You never feel like you're going, what? And unfortunately, that's what I've really found with the Pilates and strength ones, is like, particularly because a lot of those moves are new to me, I'm having to pause, go back, rewind 10 seconds just because I feel like I'm losing time or I'm missing a rep or any of those things. So take some time to sit down at the computer, on your phone, whichever is the most convenient for you, and really engage with some accounts, because it will become very obvious which ones you like. And then think about, okay, maybe over the next 5 days, or maybe think, right, from Monday, I'm going to do one of those videos on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And again, at the end of the week, check in. How do you feel after each workout? How do you feel after all 3 workouts combined? How did it change your appetite? Did it make you feel hungrier? Do you need to up your protein? Like, all of those things are data worth taking on board. I think when I think about how I used to approach health and fitness before I got my head around it, it was always in isolation. It was like, right, I shall do this workout, full stop. Right, I'm going to go and buy lunch now. And I wouldn't think my lunch would have nothing to do with what I'd done in the gym. So because I would simply go for the low fat, low calorie option. And so I would go from an intense workout and then I'd go to a lunch where I actually wasn't fueling my body for what I'd done in the gym. So no wonder I always kind of fell flat, felt exhausted, and ended up falling off the wagon's the wrong expression, but I would end up eating more than I wanted to, of the wrong things, because I had all of the information, I just didn't know how they all slotted into place. So think about the bigger picture. How does the exercise make me feel? What food would be really good for me based on what I have done? What would fuel me? What would make me feel really good for tomorrow's workout? So I've said this before, but if I know I've got a big lower body workout the next morning, I will eat quite a lot of protein the night before, because I think, right, that's going to really fuel me through that exercise, because I like to exercise first thing. And then I've spoken about this already, but hydrate. I never used to drink enough water, and I'm a real Pepsi Max fanatic. But the electrolytes, rehydration, all that kind of thing, I've really noticed the difference. Not just in my energy levels, but in my recovery from workouts. Had I tried to do a workout every day in December without electrolytes, I don't think I would have. I think there would have been days where I would have been either too sore, too tired, or just wouldn't have had it in me. And even this morning, I felt very dehydrated yesterday. Might have a bug, who knows. And this morning when I was working out, I had that dry feeling at the back of my mouth. It almost tastes like someone's walked past you with a very strong perfume on, because there's not enough moisture in your mouth. So you feel like you're tasting sort of like something has just been sprayed into your mouth that dries it out. So hydration. Think about all of these things. Don't think about, I've got to drop my calories, I've got to go to the gym every day. Because what ends up happening is they end up existing in these blocks that don't touch each other. Think about, okay, bigger picture. How do I want to feel by the end of 2025? These little things. Why don't I try these 3 little things in January? And then at the end of January, you can go, like that one, didn't like those 2. So then you take one with you and you drop the other 2 and you try something else. And then by the time you get to the end of the year, you've done loads of experiments, you've collected tons of data, and you'll probably be entering January 2026 thinking, okay, I'm in a far better position than I was this time last year, because I've collected a ton of information about what I like, what makes me feel good, what I don't like, what doesn't make me feel good. And now I'm never going to make any of those mistakes again. I've got a brand new set of rules by which I can go into 2026, and this is going to feel amazing. So I hope that is helpful for anyone who has felt slightly in turmoil by all of the messaging that is around at the moment. It happens in January. It's hard to avoid. I've felt it, so goodness knows what it must feel for everybody else, because I've spoken to so many friends who've been feeling a similar way of just kind of like, I just want, when are we going to stop with the new year, new you nonsense? But if it is there, if it has got its claws into you, I hope that this has kind of loosened its grip or taken the claws out of you, and it makes you feel like, actually, I'm in charge of this, thank you very much. I'm going to make some decisions, I'm going to make some changes, and it's going to be a project, a 12-month project, not a 2-week panic, which is something I can relate to. I did it many, many times. Slow and steady wins the race, trust me. Anyway, if you have any questions about this, if you would like me to ask me anything about my own issues or food or exercise or any of those things, or if you have any questions about any of the products that I've mentioned or about any of the strategies that I have talked about, then you can email me, office@emmaguns.com. You can go over to my Substack where I've talked about some of this stuff, so you can look at the articles, maybe read those, have a look at anything that you want to dig into and ask the question there, because I will see that. You can also DM me on Instagram, and I'll be putting a link to this, both the YouTube and the podcast, on there. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, it couldn't be easier. It's actually so interactive. Just pop a question in the comment box and I'll get straight back to you, because I see all of those comments. Thank you so much for listening and for watching and subscribing and for sharing and liking and telling all your friends. I've had some lovely messages recently from people saying that they enjoy the new direction of the show, and like stuff that's really kind of made me think, yeah, okay, this is going in the right direction, I'm doing the right thing. So thank you to anyone who has taken the time to do that. It means so much. It really does mean a lot, and it's nice to check in and spend this time with you. So thank you so much. Any questions, you know where I am, and I will see you on the next one.